good. Please be seated. Thank you. By the way, that bag of mine is about 3 tampons short of a purse. Wow. What an impressive group of roasters. Last time I heard a group of people laugh that much was at Aretha Franklin's funeral. It's a fun occasion, right? Yeah, okay. Well, let's give it up again for our roast master, Bob Dietrich. Bob, very well spoken tonight, especially considering that before the roast you drank more vodka than Jessica Vasquez drank for her breakfast this morning. Speaking of existing in a constantly altered state, Shadi Aboudieh showed us how many brain cells he had left tonight. Shadi's a great, exactly, you nailed it. Shadi's a great guy. He's the leader of our club's executive team. No wonder he insists on being called President Aboudieh. What a pretentious prick. Actually, Shadi is very down to earth, and he loves to cook, especially while taking drugs. Yesterday afternoon, Shadi made his very own mushroom pizza. And later that evening, he was arrested for trying to drive a fluorescent futon through a car wash. That was a drug joke, by the way, for you kids. Shadi has interesting hobbies, his favorite being spelling his last name for confused people. When he's not at the local Jewish community center, playing the children's game Pin the Blame on the Donkey, Shadi enjoys working at event staff security at Southern California concert venues. And did you notice that Shadi has sort of an unusual voice? Every time he talks during sex, it sounds like he's doing a fucking podcast. Yeah, I know, you sent a video last week, right? Okay. Speaking of people who talk while no one is listening, Matt Monier got out of here early enough to be here tonight. Matt works in the home mortgage business and calls himself the mortgage millennial, as everybody knows. And Matt also has a taste for fast cars. And he needs a fast car because he's always driving away with all of his customers' cash. Matt's also a huge basketball fan. One day, Matt told me that he likes basketball because it's a simple sport, because all you have to do is put the ball into the basket. Shit, my 9-month-old nephew can put a ball into a fucking basket. Matt is one of our club's greatest storytellers, is he not? Hey Matt, maybe you can tell us a wild fantasy story about where more than 3 people in San Diego actually give a damn about basketball. But of course, there's no bigger sports fan in our club than Diane Horton. Right, I saw that look. Diane, I love you so much, and I think it's because you remind me of my mother. Especially when you rock those mom jeans of yours. Boy. Diane has emerged as one of our club's leaders, and by leader I mean you can see her pushing old people out of her way when she hits the dispensary. And by old people I mean everyone. At 19 years old, Diane is by far the youngest member of our club. I found out her age only because I asked her recently, and that really pissed her off. So if you really want to get kicked in the nuts, that's one way to do it. Speaking of someone who has the cojones to say whatever's on his mind, Antonio Garcia got out of jail today so he could be here tonight. Antonio, you are a Mexican RoboCop in a wife-beater tank top. Antonio is really into the improv style of comedy. In fact, Antonio is to comedy as Christoph is to comedy. Actually, Antonio is pretty damn funny. I asked Antonio the other day what his favorite comedy movie was, and he said Mission Impossible, because those were his chances of getting laid anytime before Labor Day. Remember to keep Antonio in your prayers, people. He's going in for surgery on Saturday to have a DSLR camera surgically removed from his chest. There it is right there. Oh, that was not a stretch. Not everybody knows, but Antonio invented a sex technique, and it looks like this. After he climaxes, he runs into the bathroom, locks the door, does his number 2 business, then gets the hell out of there. He calls it the lock and load. You're supposed to laugh the loudest at that. Yeah, it's a military thing, right? Okay, all right. Speaking of Hispanics with a busy schedule, our club's poster child for self-induced insomnia is here, Jessica Vasquez. You knew I was talking about you, right? All right. Jessica attends every social event that is happening in a 50-mile radius, including Justin Bieber comeback concerts, tater tot catch and release contests, and Down syndrome Scrabble tournaments. I'm going to let that last one sink in because that's my favorite joke of the night. Last time Jessica turned down a music event, it was because she had already booked a trip for that day on Ayahuasca Airlines. Jessica has very interesting tastes in men. She told me once that she felt that John Berman was very attractive. Now that was confusing because John looks like he lives on a boat but doesn't own a boat. I don't know how he pulls that off. John, bless his heart. Speaking of someone who we'd all like to see on a boat disappearing over the Atlantic, next is the second funniest of the 2 French guys in our club, Cyril Sparks. Yes, Cyril's from France, but he still won't let go of the metric system. In fact, Cyril was in bed with his girlfriend the other night, and he says to her, "Baby, I'm going to give you every centimeter of my life." All 10 of them. That was a math joke, by the way, for you guys. Now, Cyril, you know, he's truly an entrepreneur. Are you not an entrepreneur, Cyril? Yes. Thank you for acknowledging. An entrepreneur is actually a French word for "I'll do anything for a buck." You got to give him credit, though. Cyril is always trying to improve his American vocabulary. Really cool. The latest terms he learned are Cleveland steamer, Alabama hot pocket, and Cosby sweater. Hey, Cyril, you might want to fire Bob Dietrich as your vocabulary coach. Because that guy sucks. Speaking of guys with questionable Mediterranean origin, let's pick on suntan contest winner Dave Zarella. Dave used to be pretty soft-spoken, but through Toastmasters, he's broken that soft voice habit and replaced it with a voice that could peel paint right off a wall. Being with Dave is like being at an airport terminal. He's loud, he smells like stale Cinnabons, and no one wants to be there any longer than they have to. By the way, have you guys ever seen Dave pay for a drink? Every time I see Dave buy a drink, he pulls this fat wad of cash out of his pocket. That bulge in his pocket looks like there's an erection in there the shape of a crushed tomato sauce can. There's only 2 reasons to be carrying that kind of cash, Dave, for sex or for drugs. Hey, Dave, get with the times and Bitcoin that shit, will you? It's a whole lot safer. Now, here's a guy who's actually hung like a tomato sauce can, Chris Hamill. Yeah, big smile on your face out of that one. That's good. Another acknowledgement. Chris is my favorite person who works for the Marine Mammal Association because he's the only one I know who works there, of course. Right. And Chris has a side business right outside. It's a taco truck. Interesting location for a restaurant, if you ask me, right across from the Marine Mammal Association. Huh. Right. I have one thing to say about his vaquita tacos. Oh. Don't knock them till you try them. Plus fried, they taste like fish, right, Chris? By the way, those last jokes totally lean on whether you know that a vaquita is an endangered marine mammal. So there's that. No wonder nobody fucking laughed. Chris is really into anything that's improv. And I think Chris has gone a bit overboard with the improv stuff, even when it comes to food. At Chris's house last week, he made me a quesadilla. And since he had no tortillas or cheese, he served me a Guardians of the Galaxy Frisbee with yellow marine epoxy splattered all over it. Tasty, but a little tough.
It wasn't epoxy.
Yeah. Oh. Hey, Chris, there is a building, and that building is called a grocery store, and they will let you in. And in that building there are groceries, which you can buy. Finally, here's a guy that thinks the only place you can buy cucumbers is at an adult bookstore. Bob Dietrich. I've been good friends with Bob for quite some time now, so I sort of have a soft spot in my heart for him. My doctor calls it an aneurysm. Bob spends most of his time cheating his way into rock concerts, installing energy-efficient lighting for blind people, and listening to Christoph explain rules for speech contests. Bob used to be very active in Toastmasters. Now the only pathway he's on is the one that leads to the clinic where he scores antibiotics for his STD. And unlike Surreal, Bob only has one STD. How many? Wow! Right on, brothers, right on, brothers. All right. Now listen, a couple years ago, Bob found out that one of our club's members had passed away. And Bob's reaction was, well, since he's not going to use it next Thursday anymore, can I borrow the club's projector? That was the darkest joke of the night, ladies and gentlemen, right there. I don't want to label the man as insensitive, but after Bob has sex, he pays the girl with Sacagawea dollar coins. Everybody hates those fucking coins, by the way, Bob. Jeez. Well, listen, before we get finished, thanks to all the roasters for roasting me tonight. I had a blast, as you may have seen, and I think everybody here did too, did they not? So let's give it up again for our roast master.